Shifting gears a bit here, Maya. Talking about that first pool, that's that crazy pool. So currently the standings are Oregon at 3-1, Texas at 2-1, Ohio State at 2-1, Wisconsin 2-2, and Sonoma State 0-4. I just heard a rumor that Ohio State, currently the 3 seed in the pool, is planning on just throwing their game to Texas so that they can save their energy. That pool is decided in terms of who's moving on. Ohio State, the current 3 seed, has beaten Wisconsin, so they automatically would win the tiebreaker if both teams are 2-2. So an interesting scenario playing out there in Pool 1. We're going to have the 1, the 4, and the 5 seed in the pool moving on to the bracket play.
Definitely interesting. I think one of the biggest stories there is Sonoma State. Were at the top of the Southwest for the majority of the regular season, faltered a little bit in the postseason, and now to see them going 0-4, they were just not ready to play on the national stage. A lot of mental errors. They just aren't a very strong team without Maggie Rudin, who's their star player, sort of like Idy is for Humboldt State, being on. Right now, we see Idy totally on for Humboldt State. If Idy was off, we can imagine that Humboldt would be playing really poorly in this game. Just like Maggie having some problems for Sonoma State, they end up 0-4, giving a chance for Ohio State to move on. If I were Ohio State, I might consider doing the same thing. Just concede that you're going to end up in pre-quarters and rest all your starters and get the legs ready to play that game and win it.
Especially difficult for these teams that have that schedule where it goes last game of pool play back-to-back in the pre-quarters. Seems like a significant advantage for teams playing earlier in the day. Humboldt State, though, moving it up here. Hannon going around for the dump, instead finding Idy. Johansson.
I'm good. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Call on the play, stoppage, foul on the mark. Costa back. Johansson. Hannon looking for Idy. Iowa trying to shut things down on Idy, but just too fast. And there we have a foul called on the play. Wooderbottom coming in the underneath.
Looks like a foul called on the D. No contest. Just stays with Humboldt.
Play resumes. Winterbottom looking upfield. Call on the play.
Good call.
Humboldt's end zone set here, very interesting. You can tell just the way the players are spread out across the field that they are going to focus on their handlers. You'll notice that the cutters are standing in the back of the end zone and on the sideline, and there's a huge amount of space you can see there on the far side of the field.
Play resumes just right near the goal line. Hannon looking back, finding Johansson. Flip for the score. No. Drop by Idy. Her first mistake of the game, really. Putting it deep. Iowa trying to strike. So far, I don't know if Iowa has completed any of those huck attempts.
You know, they didn't complete that one, but that's an excellent choice with the throw. It's going to create a situation where Humboldt now has to work the entire length of the field. If you complete it, awesome. If you don't complete it, awesome. Still a good situation.
The wind is picking up a little bit. It's going to make these upwind points that much harder. I think that was a great decision by Iowa.
Humboldt State moving it. Idy putting it deep. Miscommunication there. Still a chance. Iowa gets the D. Lisa Miner.
Miner with the SWAT D.
Miner's been a great player for Iowa all season. She's big on D. She's got great throws. It's great to see her out on the field making these plays now. That's what Iowa needs to stay mentally in this game, regardless of the score.
Iowa on their own goal line, trying to work it up. This time finding an undercutter. Good succession of gainers. Putting it deep once again. This one, first huck completed. Just outside the end zone. Looking for a dump. Foul called on the play. Too much bumping on the mark from Humboldt.
Liz Miner, where have you been all my life? Huge D, comes over, gets open, throws the pretty huck. Dang. Check out this throw. This is a pretty backhand, quick release, booyah.
No contest, counts on 0. Sorry, 6.
It's like an uncontested foul, disc tapped in. Here's a look at the Iowa end zone set.
Toig, nice inside around break with the flick. Back to Toig. High release backhand for the score, and Iowa cuts the lead to 2.
You know, I love that throw. I don't think it's a throw that people practice a lot. Most of the time when you practice your backhand, you'll step with a full pivot and then throw. I would say that backhand throw is almost more common than the quote-unquote regular backhand where you pivot. I like to call it a half pivot backhand where you actually release the disc before your pivot foot hits. The goal is not to get out there and throw a fast, accurate pass. It's just get it out quick, throw a floaty one flat out to space, and let your receiver run onto the disc. Also very useful on around breaks. Just beat the mark quickly, put it out into space. There's no defender there. Accuracy not as important as quickly getting to space.
And that was Tuig with that throw there for Iowa. She is a very intelligent player, and she, I think, more than anything, skill-wise, her strengths lie in her decision-making. That was a very quick decision she had to make. She just put it out to space. Her receiver ran onto it. That's a great point for Iowa.
Iowa finding some success after a little trouble early on. Holding things now up to their defense to generate a turnover. Timko with the pull for Iowa. Starting things off, Green, centered from ID. Upfield.
It's nice to see ID and Green both in the backfield now. Hopefully they'll be working together a little bit more. Like I said before, I'm surprised that Green still hasn't had as many touches as ID on the disc. That's usually their game plan. ID is just on fire though, so it is working out for Humboldt.
Moving upfield, ID trying to get an isolation once again. Looking for Green, just out of reach. Incredible effort by Green to go after the forehand flick.
For that, couldn't come up with it though. Iowa disc.
Iowa looking for an option. Going underneath. Timko, another big gainer. Erickson, back to Timko. Avercamp. Upfield. Iowa being patient now. Definitely adjusted after the first points of hucking. Big fake out. Throw too far out in front.
Iowa turn.
You know, I think the handler there, she knew that she was going to throw to a space, and she actually turned and stopped looking at the dump cut and just looked at the space. That's a mistake. Hand-eye coordination is based on the fact that you're always looking at your target. Your hand will do the work. You don't need to look at the space to throw it, especially when it's a short throw. Now, hucks are slightly different. When it's a throw that's that close, the disc's only going to be in the air for maybe less than a second. Just stay locked onto your handler, throw it, just hit him right in the chest. No need to lead him.
Looking back, now upfield, another layout opportunity. Comes up short.
Humboldt turn.
Now that's the second up the line cut this point that the Humboldt hasn't been able to connect on. If I were them, I would rely more on their around breaks at this point. Those throws are not working out for them.
This layout is successful, and Humboldt State gets the D.
Nice D by number 7, Georgina Tetlow.
Tetlow,
Bags disc.
ID. Now, looking at the line, Green makes an incredible move. Absolutely shredding. ID. Back to Green, up the line. These handlers are working well together now. High release to ID. Johansson. For ID. Seems like nobody can stop this. Humboldt State, 6-3, they lead over Iowa.
Captain Charlie opportunity. Georgina Titlow was up to the task for the Humboldt score.
Heidi is absolutely putting on a handling clinic right now. We're going to take a look at her work here. We're going to see her working the disc, using her fakes. She throws and goes, beats her defender. The around break happens. She keeps the disc moving, and you can see that she's always thinking about where the next cut is going to be. She's watching the disc sometimes, but always thinking about the space that she's creating with her cut. Sometimes great cutters aren't just fast, they're smart and they know how to get open. Heidi is playing great.
Definitely. Also on the reception there, Georgina Tetlow, she has been an outstanding player for the Hags this year. She actually got that layout D as well. Huge on D. She's ready to hit the ground. She is one of those players that pumps up the Humboldt Hags.
Pumps me up watching a play like that. Just perfectly horizontal on that layout. Ooh.
Yeah, I see her on the end.
Doesn't get much better than that for Humboldt State, now leading 6-3 over Iowa. So the tail of the tape here, looking at leaguevine.com, where you can check out all the stats here at Nationals, as well as include your own team and keep track of your own leagues and stats. Leaguevine.com. Thanks for supporting us. Heidi, 46 for 48, completion so far, touching the disc a ton. Johansson, 30 for 32, Green, 16 for 16. Iowa now moving the disc. Pickernell looking upfield. Toig putting it deep.
Iowa turn, Humboldt State disc.
Now these are surprising mistakes for Iowa's starters. Toik is a starter for Iowa, and to see her throw the disc away like that, it's a little bit disappointing. Iowa should be excited to play in this little wind. I mean, I think it's hurting them right now. They're overthrowing their players time and time again.
A wide zone here almost gets the D for Iowa. We've seen a couple of different zones from Iowa so far, used to playing in that wind. Moving the disc well. The early zone forced Humboldt State to work it up the field very patiently. Moving back to Heidi now to dominate, not allowing the swing, giving everything in the middle of the field. As Mario, as you were saying before, and their clashes here would have made all the difference, as opposed to dumping, swinging it back. And we saw that attempt there, just a bad drop, unfortunately, for Hannon.
You know, it was a drop, but it needs to be on the thrower. That shouldn't be a flick. That's one of the hardest flicks you can throw. Just a little touch flick for 2 yards. Just reach out with a backhand and just set it in her hands.
Iowa with a great attempt. Tuig throws the nonchalant assist. Humboldt
Number 10, Chelsea
still having a 6-4 lead.
Corner there for Eliza Minor for the Iowa score.
It's one of my favorite types of assists, the
Iowa
nonchalant
Humboldt
assist.
6.
It's like, oh, no big deal.
Been here before.
Been here before. She's open. I'm going to just take care of this.
My favorite goes back to the walk-off huck. Send it deep. Don't even look at it. Know it's going to be good. Walk off the field.
Just leave it up there. Leave your follow-through out there and walk off. It's a good one. Now, just to compare what the women's division looks like compared to the open division. There are 3 out of the 4 pools have gone perfectly to seed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The only one that hasn't gone to seed is Pool A. Oregon sits at the top, 4-0. Minnesota, the 2 seed, went 3-1 as expected. But a team that I think everyone was hoping would have an impact and make an upset did in fact just do that. Currently sitting at 3rd in the pool is Georgia Tech. If they can pull out a win, that would be the 5 seed taking the 3 spot in the pool, moving on to pre-quarters. And I tell you what, Nick Lance is a dynamite handler. You would not want to play against Georgia Tech if you're anybody.
Currently right now, down 8-4 to Ohio is Georgia Tech. The magic number for them is actually 3. If they lose that game by 3 or less, they will advance on. But if Ohio maintains their lead, we could see Ohio move on to the pre-quarters there.
Yeah, it's an interesting system when it comes down to point differential. Teams that end up with the same record, it goes to the total points they scored compared to the points that their opponent scored. And then it also goes down to common games to decide who moves on.
Looking deep for Costa. Humboldt State, impressive huck there. 7-4 they lead.
And that was Natalie Green on the hook there. That's the kind of play that we're looking for her to make. It's not just Heidi on this team. Green has those throws.
It's like Humboldt State's taking the time
Green
out.
has been impressive so far. Coming up, Heidi was running the show early on, and Green has stepped up, like you said, Maya.
Humboldt State did not call that timeout. Iowa did.
So Iowa has gone ahead and called the timeout here, and I think that they're having that talk that we talked about before. Let's take a look inside the huddle.
Still seeing the under, we're just like watching them come back and they'll make mistakes if we take the unders away. And then Marks set them very quickly. You guys are super fucking happy about that. Set the mark, roll around, nothing up line, okay? Then just high energy on the sideline. And then again, no mental lulls. Okay?
Yes, Sauce. Keep it up, guys.
Offense, Kid, Alex, Carolyn.
I need to set one. I can't be on right now.
Alex.
So you could hear the Iowa coach, you know, focusing on small goals, just like we talked about. He's got them focusing on their marks. You could hear the players in the huddle trying to pump each other up. Verbally, I heard it, but looking at their huddle, their body language didn't tell me that they were pumped up.
Humboldt having the opportunity to break for half, extending the lead 8-4 would be huge.
Take a look at that beautiful scenery. That's an excellent shot there by our man Sam Adamson, one of the fine members of the NGN crew. It really is a treat to be out here in Boulder. Conditions definitely getting a little windy right now, but extremely beautiful.
As if the wind picks up, it will have a huge impact going into the pre-quarter round starting at 5 p.m. today. Here, and turnover, big D by Humboldt State, and Heidi picking up the disc.
Nice D by number 4,
Green
Natalie
streaking.
Green for Humboldt State.
Excellent holster there by Heidi. She had a receiver streaking deep, but she decided to take the easy one.
Heidi knocking on the doorstep once again. Overthrown, but Humboldt State is there, gets the catch. Back to Heidi and quick flip. And it's halftime. Humboldt State is up 8-4. We'll be back in the second half. Thanks for listening to our coverage. This is Next Gen Network's coverage of the 2012 College Championships here in Boulder, Colorado.
Into the end zone for the score. Number 8, Kathleen Johnston pulls that point in for halftime. Humboldt State Hags 8, Iowa Saucy Nancy 4.
And we're back here in Boulder, Colorado for the second half of Humboldt State versus Iowa. I'm Brian Jones here with Mario O'Brien and Maya Ziv. Humboldt State has jumped out to a big 8-4 lead. We have a big thanks to our sponsors, though. Today's game's encoded by Elemental Technologies, providing video processing solutions to deliver streaming content to any screen, anytime, anywhere, all at once. Iowa receiving here, trying to get back on track, all with the disc. Looking out, Humboldt State playing fiery on defense, coming out with a layout D immediately.
That was just excellent commitment by the Humboldt defender to deny the underneath easy throw.
Moved upfield. Heidi fitting in a tight space. Is there a catch? Foul called on the play. Looks like when this one is going back to Heidi.
Looks like we have a foul called in the end zone.
Rare mistake on that throw. I think it was the right choice. She just needed to put it towards the cone. Her offensive player had an advantage over there. Just Threw it a little bit too far inside. Rare mistake there from Heidi.
Foul contest.
Still discussion going on.
Looks like it's going to be a contested foul. The players agreed, and the disc goes back.
Out coming in on 2.
Heidi, and once again, back to Johansson, back to Heidi. Heidi looking for the around and flip.
That's just a clinic once again by Heidi, using her fakes to move the defenders and create an easy throw.
Punches it into the end zone.
That was a great layout D for Humboldt too. Something that we've been talking about Humboldt all season is that they are a very aggressive team. We haven't seen them turn it on too much this game, but there was a great example of it right there. They aren't afraid to body up with girls and get their hands on the disc when they need to. That was a great play.
You know, one thing going on here in the second half is all of the coaches, not just in this game, are already looking forward to their other matchups that they're going to have either tomorrow or in pre-quarters. Iowa, for example, they already know that they're in quarters. They've won the pool, so they're thinking, how do we get the right result for our team mentality in this game to move in to our quarters matchup tomorrow? Now, across the board in the women's division, all the coaches might not be paying attention as much to their game. They're actually paying attention to what's going on in the other games because that's going to affect their strategy. For example, a team that knows or knows that a team is throwing a game so that they can just play in pre-quarters. If you know that as a coach, that also affects you because you might see them. So you might either try to throw your game or try to win a game so that you can get the matchup that you want in pre-quarters. So a lot of the games going on, it's more than just the win or the loss. It's what's going to happen as a result of the win or the loss and creating the best path for yourself to give yourself an opportunity to win at the most important times of the tournament.
Costa getting a big foot block there, setting up another chance for Humboldt State to break. And Heidi is on fire, her second assist of the second half. It makes a total of 6 assists for the game.
We need to get her one of those Sky Magazine player of the game, player of the weekend, handler of the century, whatever. She is on fire.
We do have Sky Playmaker shorts available for anybody making a big play here.
How about someone who makes 1,000 good plays in one game?
1,000 shorts.
1,000 pairs of shorts.
Shorts for the rest of her life. Free shorts.
Lifetime supply of Sky. Sorry,
Playmaker
lifetime supply of Sky Playmaker shorts. Christmas gifts for years.
So we understand that teams are already looking ahead for their matchups, quarters, possibly for the pool winners and pre-quarters. What are we seeing out of Pool A that could switch things up?
Well, we've got some interesting action going on in Pool A. There's, in that pool, Oregon, Texas, and Ohio State. Ohio State and Texas are currently facing off right. Looks like Ohio State is just letting that game go. Texas was up 9-3 last time we checked. That is going to set Ohio State in pre-quarters against Iowa State. On the other hand, because Texas beat Oregon, that's going to put Oregon in pre-quarters facing Cal. It's a great, smart strategy from Ohio State. Put Oregon in the pre-quarters, a potential future contender. Make them work to get into the quarters.
And it's also a good strategy for themselves. No matter what, they know they're in pre-quarters, and that game is going to be immediately after this game. Unless you're going to face someone who you know is a tough matchup, I think that's the right call. You'd rather go in fresh to a game, be able to give it your all in an elimination game, rather than take a chance and maybe try to play some points. I think that's the right call, to just rest your players and focus 100% of your effort on the last game of the day, potentially the last important game of your season.
Oh, moving up field. High release for the score. Iowa getting on the board in the second half, down 10-5.
That's the second throw for Eliza Minor of that type. She, just like Tuig, who also had one earlier this game, both of those girls are smart players. They're gonna put that small floaty backhand to space, let her defender run on it. Iowa's doing a great job of attacking the front corners of their end zone this game.
Yeah, I love that just flip backhand. You don't need to take a big wind up on that. Just put your hand up there, all wrist, just flip it out there, keep it flat, and let the receiver run on.
Looks like we have a timeout on the field. We'll see if Iowa can battle back. We'll be right back with the action here on Next Gen Network's coverage of the 2012 College Championships. And we're back here in the final pool play matchup here in Boulder, Colorado, 2012 College Championships. We have Humboldt State with a large lead, leading 10-5. Eide has been the story of the game, absolutely destroying Iowa's zone early on. Kristen Eide has had a remarkable game with 7 assists so far. Humboldt about to receive here. Iowa trying to recuperate, get a little bit more out of this game, although they're resting their starters in preparation for the games left in this tournament. Iowa advancing on the quarters after winning their pool.
Sarah Timko to pull for Iowa.
Iowa getting set to pull. This one coming up around the brick mark. The wind has settled down. We were expecting 25-mile-an-hour winds. It's been rather calm here in Boulder, which is great news for everyone. Some great ultimate. See some great games across both divisions.
I really love the spacing that I see here from Humboldt. Unfortunate turnover there, but they're doing a great job keeping their cutters who aren't cutting on the sidelines, which creates a lot of space downfield in the middle. Boom!
Hand block City.
Nice defense by Acosta. Humboldt disc.
Putting up the Costa, looking to strike deep. Will this one sit? No, too far, unfortunately. Looking for almost the 3/4 double happiness. The block and the assist.
Yeah, you know, I like to set rules for my team when I lead, and one of those rules is after you make a block, you should never pick up the disc. Almost never pick up the disc because you're all fired up. You're not in the state of mind that you should be to make a good throw. Especially after you make a block, you shouldn't be hucking the disc. It's always better to just reset the disc and then use your legs.
Iowa right behind, almost makes the behind the back catch. Johansson going up the sideline. Looking back now for the dump. Upfield, Green with the goal. Humboldt State leads, builds 11-5.
Humboldt State is definitely in the zone here. Unfortunately for them, it might be too little, too late. They're working really hard and showing off what kind of team they can be, but their 0-3 record, I think, is going to knock them out of even the pre-quarters at the tournament this weekend.
Humboldt State was a surprise team coming out of the Southwest, right, Maya Ziv?
Yes, I was actually at Southwest Regionals. I got a chance to see them play there. They took down Davis in the game to secure their spot to nationals. They then went on to beat UCLA, setting UCLA to be the 4th seed out of the Southwest, and then they beat Sonoma State in the 2-3 game. They actually took the 2nd place spot out of the Southwest. They showed amazing play, just like we've seen here today. No fear in taking those deep shots, aggressive defense, and it paid off for them there. Unfortunately, it looked like they couldn't bring that game with them to Boulder on Friday.
You know, this Humboldt team reminds me of a team in the open division, and that's Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has a truly dynamic handler in Nick Lance, and anytime you have a player like that on the field, you have a chance to win a game, because when players like that, especially as a handler, if you play flawlessly, the defense just has no chance, and that's kind of what we're seeing here today. Eide is so dominant and controlling the game that Iowa just has virtually no chance to make a play on any of the discs. Granted, they are in a situation where they're not putting everything into it. You have to give a lot of credit to the star power of a great handler, even on a team that necessarily doesn't have a great program.
Sleeth, the disc for Iowa. Moving upfield to Erickson. Coming back for the dump. Lots of people back for Iowa, really giving space downfield, but here's an underthrown disc and a chance. Costa moving it up, big throw, wide open in the end zone. Too far.
Looked like the receiver almost gave up on that before really running it out. She might have been able to toe the line even. It didn't go that far out of bounds, but she just stopped running about halfway down the end zone.
Yeah, I don't think the thrower got the angle and direction on the throw that she wanted to. Just led her a little bit too far to the cone. Needed to get it over to the break side a little bit more.
Play restarts Iowa. Erickson with a great catch going to the ground. Camp.
Iowa cutters very, very deep.
Iowa turn.
Created that space underneath.
Fortunate turnover. Looking upfield for Adi. So dangerous around the end zone. Once again, 8th assist of the game, and Humboldt is up 12-5. No end in sight of Idi's domination of this game. So we have Iowa wrapping up their pool, Maya Ziv. They came out of the North Central region. Tell us about how they got here.
Iowa actually had sort of a rocky season. They did very well at nationals in years past, and then this season they've been considered sort of second in the North Central after Iowa State. Then at regionals, they broke out. They won first in their region. Iowa State actually ended up taking third. Now, Iowa State has had a really exciting weekend. They had sort of a rocky Friday. They're going to actually end up in pre-quarters already. Iowa's here proving their dominance. Looks like they are doing what they can to peak at the right time. I don't think this game is indicative of how their performance has been all weekend, and they find themselves at the top of their pool and into the quarters.
What are Iowa's chances then moving on forward after quarters in the semis? Who do you see them facing up against, and what are challenges they're going to have?
I think Iowa is going to have some really exciting matchups. They are an incredibly strong team, and whatever team that matches up against them, especially if it's windy, is going to have a challenge against the multitude of zones that they work. It looks like Iowa is going to be matching up against either Cal or the winner of the Cal and then Oregon or Ohio State pre-quarters game. At the moment, it'll be Oregon if Ohio State loses, which they are losing. So Oregon or Cal is going to be an interesting matchup for Iowa. I think Oregon probably has the better chance over Cal. They've got some dynamite players that'll match up with Iowa's top players, and Oregon also has a multitude of zones that they can work with.
And I would not want to play against Oregon in the pre-quarters, knowing that they lost a game. Lou Burris is going to have his team mentally dialed for those elimination games. And you might run into a buzzsaw if you catch Oregon in pre-quarters. They did not want to be there. They were probably expecting to win their pool. Not necessarily unchallenged, but they definitely were expecting to win the pool and go straight to quarters.
Definitely. I think they were not expecting especially to lose to Texas. They have been showing better results at tournaments all season long versus Texas. Cal, on the other hand, who won the Southwest, is sort of surprised also to see themselves in pre-quarters. I think Oregon will have that game there. Oregon is completely dominant. What Oregon does is they will have up or down games. Cal, on the other hand, has just random inconsistencies within a game. So if Oregon comes out fired up and on, they will definitely capitalize on all of Cal's turnovers. Even 1 or 2 breaks, Oregon will take that game.
Yeah, Oregon's been a different team this year, significantly different than the team that won the championship a few years ago. And talking to Lou, says the teams couldn't be more different.
Mm-hmm.
The 2010 team had just an incredible O-line. You had Shannon McDowell, Janica Villamore, Claire Sharman, and those were all just, I mean, those girls are incredible players. They're fast, they're talented, they're skilled. the emphasis this year and the strength of Fugue has been the defense. They've just absolutely been able to shut down teams and generate breaks with the defense.
Yeah, I think having Bailey Zanisser back for Oregon this tournament is really helping them out as well. She's been out all season with an ACL injury. Finally, she's back. She's ready to play hard, and she's been making great plays for them on both O and D all weekend. She's also a big motivator. She was on every sideline of every game for Oregon this season, and here she is at Nationals on the field with her team.
Yeah, Bailey's just a diehard Ultimate fan, player. If you know Bailey, you know that she loves everything about Ultimate.
Heidi looking deep. Tetlow comes down with it. Great catch by Tetlow. Wide open in the end zone, and Humboldt State, no looking back, leads 13-5. Excuse me, 13-6. After the game, make sure you visit the NGN Facebook page to vote for the Elemental Player of the Game. One voter will receive an Elemental prize pack with 2 discs, a t-shirt, and an aluminum water bottle.
Humboldt State Hags 13.
Keeping your water cool.
Iowa Saucy Nancy 6.
It's been a monumental year for coverage in Ultimate Frisbee, led by the charge by Sky Magazine and Next Gen Network.
Timeout Humboldt State.
Maya Ziv and I have been part of the Sky 2012 College Tour. Got to go around to a lot of tournaments. Stanford Infight was a big one.
Centex as well on the women's side. That was absolutely amazing.
Centex on the men's, and then Easterns, of course. Mario and I going out there, seeing some great games, great competition.
You know, Maya, I'm really interested to hear about Centex, the women's tournament. I've heard, you know, that sort of the aesthetic of that tournament is significantly different because it's just a women's tournament. Are there specific things that happen that make it more fun, just a better event overall for women, supportive of the women's community? What is it about that event that makes it so special?
Well, I think primarily to note is usually this group called Without Limits, which is run by Michelle Ng, helps sponsor that tournament. She works really hard to put on a fantastic tournament, great organization, and making sure that everyone has what they need. Without Limits is a group that works to promote women's ultimate in the community, help with coaching clinics, that sort of thing. And I think that Centex is the prime example of the work they do. They also have a lot of fun sort of events. They have a barbecue at the end of the day, and with the world famous dance off where teams actually get to submit dances that they do. They submitted videos ahead of time, and they were posted on YouTube, and the internet world voted on which teams they wanted to see dance off at Centex. And so I believe this year it was Wisconsin Eau Claire who took the win. Very exciting there.
That's my alma mater, UW Eau Claire. I don't think that's the first time that they've been there. At least, I don't know if there's finals of the dance-off, but I know that my good friend Pat Niles has been their coach for a number of years and takes a lot of pride in succeeding at that dance competition. Pat Niles, a good dancer himself.
Yeah. Well, I believe it is their second, if not third, win in a row for Wisconsin Eau Claire. So they must have some fantastic dance moves going on there.
Pat Niles, the winner of USAU's Dance Choreographer of the Year. Iowa.
Get him some shorts. Get him some
Playmaker shorts.
Playmaker on the dance floor shorts.
Sleeth looking upfield, moving the disc for Iowa. Schrader up the line. Hart, and we have a stoppage on the play. Justine Hart with the disc.
You know, it's great to see Iowa with a lot of energy on the field at this point. Their sidelines look a little slow to catch up with their players, but the players on the field are working really hard. To me, that shows that they aren't so mentally down. They're practicing what they need in order to get ready for their quarters game. A quick point like that is a great sign that they are still mentally connected to this game.
We had Bradley going up the line for Iowa, bringing this to a 13-7 game.
And you can really see the Saucy Nancy ladies. They have checked out mentally of trying to win this game, and I think that's the right move. But like we were talking about before, you still want to make sure that you don't go in flat to that next game, your quarters game. I think wouldn't be surprised if the Iowa girls got together tonight to sort of just reevaluate where they are, talk about this last game, put it behind them, and say nothing that happened in the past matters. It's all about what's in front of us. Maybe they'll get here early tomorrow, get a little extra throwing. I saw before the game that they were very fired up. They seem like a very energetic, fun team, and I think they will be dialed in tomorrow.
Be interesting to see. I always, as a coach, would love to have my starters come in for the last 2 points of a game that didn't matter whether or not we were winning big or we were losing big. Just for if we have another game to prepare for it, I want them to kind of leave that game with a little ping of success. That way they can go into the next game on the right foot.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to play it. The bottom line is you need to let your team know what your strategy is. Everyone has to know. Otherwise, if people are confused about what's going on, they're confused about the play calling, they lose buy-in to what the goals are and what the overall goal is. And that just points to good leadership. Good leaders make the goals and the expectations aware, not only for the game, not only for the tournament, but for each point or each small set of points.
Humboldt State working it quickly up the field as they have Heidi, Hannon, Johansson. That handling crew has done well with Green as well.
Counts on 0.
Heidi has been absolutely dominant. 96% completions on her throws. That's absolutely incredible for anyone in Ultimate.
65 for 69. This one, though, overthrown a bit. Incredibly, 69 touches. Nearly 70 touches in this game, and this has been a game with not many points. That's something that's twice the amount of touches we might see from any given player.
That's almost more touches than I get in a whole season as a defensive handler. That's fun, man. Playing that position is fun. You're always involved. It's a fun role to play. Just goes to show if you want to have more fun playing Ultimate, get really awesome at throwing. That time is well spent.
But then you get none of the glory of catching the disc deep.
Hey, man, I'm happy to throw alley-oops. I'm happy to play play the Chris Paul if I got a Blake Griffin.
Who's your Blake Griffin?
I got tons of Blake Griffins. On Rhino, I got Timmy Purston. I got the College Freshman of the Year, Aaron Hahn. I got Cody Bjorklund, Dylan Freechild. Ooh, that sounds good. I got ex-Callahan winner Eli Friedman.
Speaking of Rhino and Oregon, it looks like we might see Oregon facing off against Cal. Currently, Texas is huddled up. They just cheered. So it looks like they might have taken that game against Ohio State, putting Oregon into the pre-quarters against Cal. So we'll look forward to that game next round.
I think that's going to be the game to watch of all the pre-quarters. Anytime you've got the overall #1 seed in a pre-quarters game, I wouldn't be surprised to see the sidelines packed for that one.
Heidi picking up the disc, putting it deep for her. Another assist, her 10th of the game.
Regular John Stockton out here, dropping dimes.
Instead of Blake Griffin, we got Carl Malone.
I don't have any Carl Malones on Rhino. Mostly Blake Griffins.
Speaking of the men's side, though, right now we have most of our matchups set. Going into the bracket, Oregon has won their pool. Minnesota going to pre-quarters. Pittsburgh winning their pool. Carleton going to winning their pool. Tufts and Colorado have finished. Tufts in second place and Colorado in third place going into pre-quarters. And Wisconsin, Central Florida and Cal are also in. Central Florida finishing second and Cal finishing third. Right now, though, monitoring this game, very important. The magic number is 4. If Ohio wins by 4, they will tie Georgia Tech with point differential for the last spot in Pool A. If Georgia Tech can make the loss only by 3 points, they will be in. Ohio, if they can win by 5, they will be in, and it's 11-8 right now, Ohio.
The subtleties in a tournament like Nationals are crazy. When things come down to point differential, it's not just about winning and losing. It's about how many points you score in a game. It makes every point important. You know, and you can set those goals in practice. You can say this point is important. Every point is important. And teams that have that mentality in practice throughout the whole season, especially teams that have an ultimate culture, know that. And that's why they end up being successful.
It's been interesting, too, to see the format now with the strength bids over the last 2 years. Truly in the regular season, every point does matter. It impacts your ranking, and especially for trying to get bids for regions. We saw the Southwest and the women's get 5 bids this year. We saw the North Central and the men's get 5 bids this year. And the rankings are so close that 1 point could make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, 1 turnover could make the difference between your entire season. And that's to me, that just pushes the level of the game higher. It gives you incentive to be perfect as much as you can, to always practice the right way and always stay focused. If anything, it teaches you that you cannot have mental lapses if you are committed to performing at the highest level. And I think that's not necessarily that Ultimate has lacked, but I think with the old format, you know, truly nothing mattered until regionals, so you could really experiment with things. You could tell yourself this doesn't matter, but in the new format, which I love, you really have to play every point like it means something, because it does.
Humboldt stayed up 14-7 with a chance to break for the win. Looking upfield, the wind has picked up a little bit. Looking at the line, Humboldt State is there. Oh, but caught by Iowa.
Nice D by Costa.
Oh, picking it up, putting it out in front again. This one tipped. Iowa cannot come down with it. Receiver had a chance on the way down to the ground.
Yeah, the wind really got a hold of both of those last 2 throws, popping them up a little bit, giving the defense a chance to make the play.
Quick score update in the men's side, 11-9. Ohio is up over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has gotten a break back. That will be huge. Ohio will receive with a chance to make their lead 3, but that would still put Georgia Tech into the pre-quarters. We talked about some teams here really shutting it down before pre-quarters, taking the rest. Unfortunately for Georgia Tech, a team that's really based around Nick Lance. He's played a lot of points today against Minnesota and Ohio. Could be a death knell going into pre-quarters.
You know, if Georgia Tech does make it to pre-quarters, I'd be very surprised if they came out of there. They've had to put everything into their games just to get to where they are, and they're probably going to run into someone else who's a more balanced team. And you never know. Nick Lance could carry them to a pre-quarters victory, but I think with the amount of points he's had to play just to get them there, I imagine he is going to be gassed.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, they will run into their regional rival, Central Florida, who absolutely dominated them 15-8 in the regional semifinal game in the Southeast region. Central Florida is a much deeper team, although coming off a loss. The mindset is interesting for Georgia Tech and those teams. We always like to focus on the teams that are going to win the championship. But you know what? For a team like Humboldt State here, who's going to come out with a victory, this is their celebration. And Georgia Tech, their victory was getting here. Iowa going up for a disc, can't get there.
And it's a fun attitude to take if you're a Humboldt State or you're a Georgia Tech. You can just go in there with a no holds barred, nothing to lose attitude, and just throw all your high, powerful artillery at every single point and say, hey, we're giving it our best shot.
Coming in on 4.
We weren't even maybe supposed to be here, but let's just do it. Let's go for it.
Surprises are always fun. Minnesota Duluth coming out of the men's division, having an incredible run through the North Central, making it over favored Iowa, although they did not have to face Iowa in order to get in.
Disc is on the line.
Yeah, you just got to get hot at the right times when it comes to late in the season. Doesn't matter what the regular season did. If you can get hot at the right times.
Speaking of
Make it to
peaking at the
nationals.
right times, we actually just wrapped up Pool D. Looks like Tufts, the 4th seed in Pool D, will take the #1 spot there. They'll be moving on to quarters. 2nd seed, we've got Iowa State. Sorry, the 3rd seed originally. Iowa State's going to finish up 2nd in the pool, and then Cal. So it looks like Iowa State will face off against I believe, Ohio State, and then Oregon facing off against Cal, like we said. Tufts winning that pool is an amazing place for them to be. No one, I think, expected them to do that well. They're really comfortable sitting in quarters now. And then I think Oregon and Cal also were not expecting to be in pre-quarters. Both of those were #1 seeds in their pool coming in. That's not the time that you want to get knocked out coming in as a 1 seed in your pool.
Humboldt State has everything almost wrapped up, 14-8. Just needs to punch one more into the goal.
Heidi's coming back on the field to put this one away.
Is Heidi in her last year of eligibility, or should be coming back at all?
I believe that Heidi is in her last year of eligibility. Humboldt, opposed to some of their top players like Heidi and Green, are a relatively young team. They've got a few great years ahead of them. Their coach, Matt Kissman, has done an amazing job of developing this team. It was, just years ago that this was a dream, and here they are on the national stage making noise against one of the top teams, Iowa.
Heidi finishing it off. Beautiful huck. 10th assist of the game. Humboldt State, victory over Iowa. We'll have pre-quarters coming up, 5 p.m. local time.
Yeah, we're going to have Oregon against Cal. Just like I was saying, the game that everyone's probably going to want to watch. The #1 overall seed dropping a game in their pool. They're going to drop down to pre-quarters. Going to face off against someone who used to be in their region. Cal should be a great game in the pre-quarters. I'm excited for that one.
Renewing regional rivalries. Well, thanks for joining in. For Maya Ziv and Mario O'Brien, this is Brian Jones signing off for Next Gen Network's coverage of the 2012 College Championships.
Round of applause, ladies